Johnny. And then I got
Ladies and gentlemen, can I please have your attention?
Hold
I
on.
need all of you to stop what you're doing and listen.
Now, live from Chicago, the Hal Sparks radio program MAGA Worldwide.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
Hal Sparks, actor, comedian, and multimedia personality.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Oh my goodness. Oh,
Let's do this.
oh, I'm excited. Oh, it's Johnny Million with me today. It's the Hal Sparks radio program MAGA Worldwide. We're here every Saturday, nearly without fail. And sometimes I feel like it's Groundhog Day. Sometimes I feel like when we're doing the news stories, we're on a weird perpetual loop. And then occasionally there's like a breakaway week where, in spite of the repetitive talking points of the right wing and their ilk, there is still they manage somehow to outdo themselves. And this week in particular, if I may, and I think you'll recall it's Johnny Million.
You've got some reverb going on.
I do?
Yeah, they say that it sounds like you're in a hall. In a hall, not a hall.
I wouldn't be in a hall in a hall. Am I? Okay. Well, I'll check on that. I don't see anything. Going back. Okay, so we'll try and avoid that. I don't know what that is. Maybe it's just an aspect of the interwebs. We'll work on it as we go. So the mic doesn't sound right. All right, we'll figure it out. Well, it sounds all right to me, and that's
me too.
Fine. All right, so
sounds like an empty room,
yes,
but we're in here.
This week, this is fascinating to me. I think in general, I think this is fascinating. Did you watch any of the myriad of right-wing driven committee stuff this week? The IRS whistleblower and the what was it? The other, the weaponization of the interwebs.
Yeah, I watched a little bit of that. It gets, but I kind of like scroll by it now because I'm like, they're just gonna get owned over and over and over and over.
Right. That's It's ferociously embarrassing and weird to watch normally because it's such a fail. It is such a massive just dump that they take every week. Where's the phrase? I know I have it in here somewhere. Let's see.
Speaking of which, I had my first colonoscopy this week.
They call them dumps, big, massive dumps.
Yeah, and how did that? I don't want to know actually. You know what? Get some crayons and we'll figure it out during the break.
Oh, but I've got diagrams.
No doubt. Did they give you like? This is to go. You can take these images with you. You know, it's like an ultrasound.
Yes. Yeah, I didn't even know. It was just a pile of paper, and I was flipping through it and saw this like color photo, and I was like, Jesus God, I don't want this.
You can't go wrong. That's what I'm telling you.
Uh-oh.
So
now I don't hear you.
Oh, I fixed it. Don't worry. I was just doing a thing.
I lost you too, Hal, if you can even hear me.
I'm here.
Nobody
you hear me now?
hears Hal anymore.
You don't? That's so weird.
Talking, please.
Hi. Can you hear me?
How about now?
Oh, now
you hear me now?
I hear both.
Okay, good. All right, good. Sorry about that. I was trying to fix something and I broke it. Anyways, back to it's a great segue. Actually, I accidentally gave myself a great segue. The fascinating part to me of the weaponization offshoot of the Twitter files essentially is what the weaponization of government thing was about. It was them trying to create sort of a legislative version of the Twitter files. That's what Jim Jordan and then put together with this weaponization thing. And they brought in this week RFK Jr. And he was making the point that he has been censored and mega censored even though by YouTube. Even before he managed to go anti-vax, they were cutting him off because of something when he released his thing and he announced his thing.
Because he's been dead for so long.
Wrong one. RFK Jr.
Oh.
Yeah, no. Yeah. They don't, and as a matter of fact, if you watch YouTube, they don't care if you're alive or dead. Your stuff's still up. Believe me, the internet is forever, and nowhere is that truer than YouTube. That said, the primary thing, is that he was there to complain about the fact that his anti-vax rhetoric was, we need to have an open dialogue about every manner of insanity, or we don't have the freedom to be ourselves. Now, I know what you're thinking, Johnny Million, is the free speech is not an automatic right to someone else's megaphone, correct? It's not,
Right. It's a private business.
Yes, free speech is not a free mic. And I think that's, I don't know why anybody would be confused about that in any particular way. It's very strange. Anyways, so secondarily...
Because it doesn't serve them.
Right. And I also, because you can't kind of 10x your free speech on the back of someone else. Something quite frankly, something very similar to what you would hear with, if you can stand on a street corner and just say whatever you want, that's free speech. That's the essence of it. Whatever the extent of your vocal range is. Or you're allowed to write anything you want and publish it yourself and write it anywhere. That's fine too. You don't have the right to automatically get your manifesto printed in the newspaper, which the Unabomber found out, I think, the hard way. And people, along, several different... a variation of terrorists and monsters throughout American history have tried to get their manifesto printed, and at no point was there the news or someone not airing or reading their manifesto on the air a violation of their free speech. Not ever, not once. That's it. And so the idea, I think, that somehow these lovely folks have and I'm not quite sure why, but for some reason these lovely folks somehow find a way to give themselves more rights than they actually have, if that makes sense.
Well, that's the only way that you can provide that they have been infringed upon.
Right. Well, you don't...
Because they need to go out and say, you guys have violated my rights that nobody else has and nobody else expects, but I am because I'm in front of a microphone.
Precisely. And the other thing is that this is a microphone that they allege is open and available to everyone. And I am here to tell you, as somebody who was kicked off of, quite frankly, by an errant copyright strike on purpose, a weaponized copyright strike by somebody who was a big Trump fan, using an old WCPT show, by the way, when we used to use, commercial music in our bumpers instead of our stuff, yours and mine,
right? Which
we had the right to do. Before he went back into into a video that was 4 years old and went after me, essentially shut the show down. Did a 90-day strike, 86 days before the 2020 election. It was very specific. It was easily done. And I got, what my response was? We moved everybody to Twitch and I took it on the chin because this is how it works. That's the rule.
That was an angle that he found and it worked and he took it and you're like, all right, adapt, overcome.
That's right. And it in no way, by the way, affected my free speech. It interrupted one of the available outlets that I could
just one
use.
Avenue. But
it did not somehow make me, it took away a privilege that I enjoy as somebody who lives in the United States, has access to these platforms, has the equipment therein to do it, none of which are rights provided to me other than citizenship, I suppose, that would allow me access to these ear holes and eye sockets that are out there. And so the idea that somehow...
I love it when you wax all poetic, these ear holes and eye sockets.
It's, thanks very much. It does. But the fascinating part for me is that they're still whining about this, that free speech is free access to someone else's business, and that they have no right to create a standard by which you have to live up to. And we deal with this all the time. I'm sure if you wanted to play music on your twitch.tv/It's Johnny Million live stream, which is amazing. If you wanted to play a piece of a cover song or somebody else's music, they're going to hit you with a strike and probably put audio over top of your channel or shut it down.
They mute it immediately.
Right. And art, it's somehow the idea that political speech or just random speech or anti-vax speech is somehow more actual protected speech than your interpretation of a piece of music, let's say, is an absurdity.
Right.
So if this organization has the right to protect them from RIAA lawsuits for recording or playing other people's music without publishing rights and all the other stuff that's therein, then they also have the ability and the right to stop someone from reading their manifesto on their website, which is a private endeavor that they, through advertising and other elements, create server farms that house all of this stuff for, in perpetuity throughout the universe and elsewhere. So at no point was it weaponized. We got to take a break, and hopefully I think I've solved the audio issue that we had earlier.
I think you have. Everyone's given rave reviews.
Excellent. Boston Brian is going to join us at the half-hour mark in this hour, and then Philip Bittner is going to join us for the second hour to talk about what's going on in Ukraine right now. Somewhere in the order of 400 square kilometers have been regained, and the Russians hit a terrible milestone this week. And it wasn't just that they started arresting pro-war bloggers in their own country. Yeah, they did that too. We'll be back.
Oh, good. Thank you, Cat Cookie. Thank you, Hal Vickery.
So let me go to studio mode real quick. And I think if I'm not
freedom
wrong,
of speech. And I'm going to say this over and over again, and I know I've said it on the show before. That freedom of speech. Are you in jail currently?
Right.
No?
Right.
Then it seems like it was free. It's about the government stopping you from expressing a view. It's not about Twitter saying that we don't want your view on here, or YouTube saying we don't want your view.
Let's see if I can see
or some advertiser dropping you.
Right. That's not bad. That looks pretty good. Yeah.
Was Flora sleeping in the hallway? Oh, I thought I heard her.
Aw.
Flora likes to sleep in a nice dusky, dark part of the hallway where you can't really see her. So you can kick her. Yeah, you can give her a good old kick. That's thank you, Ken. Ken gave us $2 just for fixing the audio.
Oh, thanks. I appreciate it.
And you know what? I actually did get muted the other day because I played along with the backing track of Journey's Stone in Love that had no guitar on it for Ken, because Ken's a big Journey fan.
Yep.
And so I did manage to pull it, so I've got it elsewhere. But on the YouTube, I just said, mute that part. And and I don't care. I know what I did.
Yep. Yeah, that's
60 seconds, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks, Devin.
This doesn't look that bad. All right. Okay. If I may, go back to here, to you and me.
Ken Otto just said, hold your comments. I'm eating. I can't type right now.
Okay. Get this in here. Coming back in a second. Thanks everybody in the chat for hanging in there. Appreciate it.
10 seconds.
Thank you. Good morning. Good to see you. Hello. Right in time for the audio to be fixed. I tried my best. But I guess my best wasn't good enough.
Welcome back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Well, I gotta say, it was hard to top this week as far as the level of ridiculousness. But I would say that the ironic part of the weaponization thing, and we will get to the IRS, whistle blow up, which turned out to be, I don't know how they managed to do this, even less than promised. But the weaponization one of the weirdest things about that, and I found the most kind of like the lack of awareness of the irony of what was going on in that that hearing, that 4 people, including a New York or a Breitbart reporter, and somebody who was reporting on behalf of, the New York Post, and then Robert F. Kennedy Jr. were there complaining that a message that, by the way, they have had a dozen different outlets to get out, including their own, and they could start their own zine anytime they wanted to, and they could obviously, host videos of themselves talking on their own website at their own expense anytime they wanted to. But because they can't piggyback on top of other people that don't want to carry that stuff forward, largely because in the case of, let's say, Facebook, most of the people who use Facebook are older, and most of the people who use Instagram are younger. And in those groups were 2 distinct groups of human beings who might get COVID and die. People who don't know they have an immune issue because they're very young, and people who are old and have an immune system, system issue because of that might. I'm just saying, if you want to keep your audience, it's just fun. It's funny how Fox lost a lot of viewers and the Republicans lost a lot of voters because they didn't seem to give a crap about protecting themselves against COVID, and it turns out maggots were hit harder than any other group. And I think
it's
Johnny,
the same effect as saying that all the elections are rigged.
Right.
Why would
You're
they
driving
go
your own
vote?
voters home. Right. And he's still doing it. Okay, we'll get to that too. But in the weaponization one, I think the most ironic part of all of it was the fact that while 3 people were complaining that they didn't have, 2 out of 9 available outlets for free to talk about whatever they wanted to talk about, that somehow that was the government interfering with them. Again, in the Twitter files, the ultimate message being that sometimes when the FBI or whoever contacted Twitter and said, this is dangerous, you should watch out for this, sometimes they said, yes, we noticed that, we'll take it down. And sometimes they said no. And the very first time and any time they were able to say no, the conspiracy over. Because you can't control someone if you don't control someone. So, ridiculous. But on top of that, during their complaint about only being able to use 7 out of 9 Star Trek reference different available social medias to them, and largely not the biggest ones because those are the ones who want the broadest customer base and can't afford to lose any customers because they don't want them dead. It might set up a term of service that goes even beyond what the government would allow, which is always how it works. Always. The terms of service on any social media are always going to be more strict than your rights as a citizen. Get used to the idea. And you know what a good comparison for this, Johnny Million? I think I got a good one.
What's that?
You know how the Second Amendment purists will tell you that in the Constitution you have an absolute right to have a gun. It is your right as an American citizen to bear arms of any sort. But you cannot bring a gun to a Donald Trump rally, and you cannot bring a gun into an NRA meeting
Or a
and
convention,
and you cannot bring your own gun into one of these gun shows. You have to check it at the door because your rights at these private gatherings is less than your overall rights because those groups have a right to narrow those rights within a safety margin for their own use, for the necessity, for the safety of the participants. You can be naked at home. You have the right to be naked at home.
Thank you.
Johnny Million will tell you that. It's true. I'm often naked at home. But you do not have a right to be naked at the mall, for example. And that is not a violation of your rights as a person who is born naked and, at some point will end up that way between now and when you pass away. So private industries, private individuals, and private homes.
Is not a bad song idea.
It sounds very. They might be giants.
Or Steel Panther.
Yes, that's true. Right.
Just like the whole song describing the situation on how he ended up naked in the mall.
I woke up. Yeah. It was a party with Tiffany, something like that. Yeah. There's going to be a Debbie Gibson reference in there somewhere. So, point I'm trying to make is, somebody in the chat, he was like, but Dad, all the kids are naked at the mall. The point is that all private situations that you go into that are not yours, anytime you leave your property, the rules change. And other people, especially if they have private property, have the right to determine the rules themselves. And that can be virtual property as well, because you are using their servers, you are using their outlets. Okay. So never mind the fact that the Breitbart person couldn't get the fact that they were reporting on a laptop they had never seen and were confused why some news sites and some related social media sites were like, yeah, you can't come on here a month from an election and use us as an outlet to pass along something that's not true, that you haven't even seen. You literally that's fake news. You can't use us for fake news especially if that's your primary complaint about us, which is even funnier. But the irony that Marjorie Taylor Greene, in the middle of this weaponization thing, holds up non-consensual nudes of the president's son and a woman he was engaged in sex acts with, where she asserts, without evidence, that that the woman is a prostitute and that she was paid for the sex that was happening in these pictures. You might think they are. You might feel sure that they are. And people in their regular interaction on social media are completely within their rights to do this. But once you become a congressional representative and you are speaking in a committee hearing and everything you say is on record and in theory, according to how the Republicans have said they are running these committees, under oath, because they all take the Pledge of Allegiance and all that stuff. I don't take a sip because I'm holding off.
Thank you.
Yeah, there might have been the essence of this, I think, is that the irony is, of course, lost on them. But the fact that Marjorie Taylor Greene broke the law on the record in a congressional hearing, showing nude pictures of someone that she had no right to. These are not pictures, by the way. These aren't from an accidental, this isn't the Tommy Lee and Pam sex tape that they eventually signed a deal
and grab them off of Pinterest.
Right. Yeah. These were not something that were supposed to be for public release. And it's one thing
I
when
had them.
Right. Yeah, of course. That flip book you drew that one time of him was amazing. You're an artist, my friend. Yeah. But I will say that she literally broke the law of Washington, D.C., of her own state of Georgia, in theory, federal law. And the essence of this, the fact that she did it during a committee meeting on the weaponization of the federal government against private citizens is head-spinningly ironic. And she is,
it's
and I
only
think we can all
topped by
agree.
the irony of her. She had a whole complaint list of things that she hated about the Biden administration that he turned into a political ad.
Oh yeah, we'll get to that in a minute because we've got a guest coming in a second. Boston Brian's going to join us right after the break. Because of something else that Marjorie Taylor Greene said that was, you'll be shocked, historically inaccurate. And Boston Brian is I don't know if a lot of people know this. He's a World War II buff, but he's also, like me, he digs into and digs the history. And there were a couple of things about what she said and what she asserted that were bananas and weird, and basically a weapon of ignorance against Ukraine, which will lead us also into the next hour. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide, now with 100% more Johnny Million. Don't forget to subscribe at infotainmentwars.com and at twitch.tv/Hal Sparks. We'll be back right after this. Okay, now
Brian seems to be having trouble connecting.
He's I know, I see him. There he is. I got him on this one, I think. Is he? He is frozen. It's an interwebs thing. We will see what we shall see. Hold on one second. Okay, there's that. And then I think, let's see. Whoops, he went away. Perhaps he will come back. We don't know. Hopefully. We'll see if he comes back. He's going to re-jump in there. We'll see. But I think I'm ready for him when he does. So we should be all right.
Oh, that looks...
Oh, I hear something going on. There, I hear some noisages. There he is. Excellent. I'm going to bring him over. Can you hear us, dear sir?
Hello?
Can you hear? Can you hear us, Brian? He cannot. Can you hear us? No, you don't hear us?
No, I don't think he can.
He cannot hear us. That is not, let's see. I've refreshed his headphones. Let's see what he's got as far as headphones available to him. We are sending audio.
Can I hear you?
Yep, we hear you. We hear you.
I just can't hear you?
Nope.
I cannot hear Hal. No.
We hear you. So, give me 1 second. Hold on 1 second. Let me show you right here.
Back in 15.
There he is. Thank you.
Thank you.
There he is. So, we hear you. You can't hear us, right? He can't hear us. His headphones or something. There's no audio coming out. Nope. Something like that. We shall see what we shall see.
Attention.
Right, we'll keep working
Stop
at
what
it.
you're doing.
I can put in headphones on.
Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Now, maybe he can hear us now. I think it's entirely possible. Nope, he doesn't hear us yet.
He still can't.
It's a little bit of a signal issue with Boston Brian. We'll try to bring him here in a second. We're working on it right now, and we're doing everything we possibly can. Can I, while we're working on that, and while I'm seeing if it's a reconnect or a connect issue on his, we are sending audio your way, Boston Brian, and hopefully. And we can hear you, but we will hold out for a second. So one of the other pieces of news, Johnny Million, if I do say so my damn self, is this FD 1023 that came out this week, which, if you'll recall, is the form that was unclassified that was being kept hidden. The FBI wasn't allowing Marjorie Taylor Greene and that crowd to be able to see. And hold on, we're gonna feel free. Let's see. He sees audio. I hope so. I hope he can see us in there audio-wise, Brian. But let us know or give a thumbs up like, hey, when you hear us. So this FD 1023 was supposed to be a big reveal this week, as was the big reveal with the IRS whistleblower. And that this guy popped into everyone's transom essentially because of the Gal Luft story failing. Gal Luft, of course, is the arms dealer and money launderer and Chinese spy / agent provocateur that was trying to loop Hunter Biden into the CEFC deal through Rob Walker and a couple other people, and that failed. And so he's still trying to make his money by making this look dirtier than it is. And again, if it's a bad sign, if you're a villain because you almost had a deal with CEFC, what if you're an employee of them for 4 years and are funded by them 3 years on either side? That would be the thing. And Brian, we will get you in here in a second, my brother. We just have to find out where your audio, once you're hearing us. So feed him a message there, Johnny Million, or something like that. You can try reconnecting. Yeah. Yep, he's going to try and reconnect again. So
I was trying to get him to reconnect.
Yeah, the FD 1023 is, and this IRS whistleblower was supposed to be a credibility multiplier in this ridiculousness, because the form is a form and says form on it and says Federal Bureau of Investigation at the top. By the way, I hear him, and I think he might hear us. I definitely hear some audio coming his way. He's coming our way. Nope, he doesn't hear us. It's very sad. What's going on? Is it one of those situations where we have that weird looping? Johnny, can you speak and see if he hears you?
Can you hear me?
Nope. Nope, he can't hear. We'll work on it. We'll get it in there. He's going to try again. Bless his heart. But this FD 1023 and the guy who was coming in, both of them were supposed to solve the problem that Gal Luft created, which is none of their witnesses have been able to give any proof of anything, and they were dirtier than the accusations against the Bidens. That doesn't help. So the only way they've been able to, in their minds, move this forward is to take a, quote, gay Democrat who works at the IRS. 3 things they hate, by the way: gays, Democrats, and people who work at the IRS. And somehow they're supposed to believe what this person says, or we're supposed to believe what this person says, because of these 3 factors, as if we just automatically cubbyhole people. So the Johnny's now communicating with Boston Brian. We'll make it happen. We'll make it happen. Fear not. Even if we have to do it during the next break, we will solve this because it's what I do. Boston Brian, fear not. That said, this FD 1023, along with this IRS whistleblower, was supposed to solve this problem for them. Here's the problem they have, though. The IRS whistleblower that they brought out, according to James Comer, only knows 1/3 of the information that he has already released. That was the big news he broke on Maria Bartiromo that depressed her this week, was that this guy can confirm 1/3 of what was said. Since we've already heard all the rest, all he's going to do then is reiterate 1/3 of what they have alleged. That 1/3 will be the IRS charges against Hunter Biden, to which he has already pled guilty to, paid $2 million in back taxes and a fine, and then got a deferred sentence on the gun charge or what have you. We already know about this. We know that he pled it out and that he paid all the back taxes. Paid more. What we did learn from this guy this week is that Hunter Biden paid more taxes to the federal government even before he was fined and they brought it back to him. Paid more taxes than Donald Trump did. Hunter Biden has paid more taxes in the last 5 years than Donald Trump has paid in the last 20. That's what we found out from that guy this week. That, to me, is the most amazing part. Secondarily, this FD 1023 form, and he can hear us now. And can you check for us to make sure we can hear you, Brian? Of course,
we can hear you.
Yay. Okay, hold on one second. We'll bring him in. Give me 1 second. Yay. That in this process,
he looks so exhausted now.
Oh, it's a thing. It's always an issue. We deal with this stuff all the time. Johnny and I. Okay, hold on. I'm switching him over because I want to bring him into this conversation before we get to the break. And there he is, ladies and gentlemen. Now the question is, can we hear him? Do we hear him on this thing? 1 second. Hold on.
You better be able to hear me.
There he is. I hear you just fine.
Someone's gonna die.
Yeah, it's a rough one. You sound great.
And now the chat says they can't hear Brian. We can hear you.
That disobeyed one of Putin's orders, and it will fly out this window really fast.
Right. Yeah. So welcome everybody. Yeah, everybody should be able to hear him just fine now.
Hi,
I was talking about this.
What's up, Johnny?
Hi.
I'm doing great, Brian. It's so good to see you.
You as well, buddy.
So the FD 1023, which did you have a chance to peruse that this week, Boston Brian?
I did. I think we covered it pretty well yesterday, to tell you the truth.
Yeah,
I mean, you did
a
bang-up job covering it.
Yes, and that's where I think we'll catch up people who only listen on the radio or only know us on Saturdays. Boston Brian is on the Midas Touch Network. He does great work over there. His videos are terrific. Please check them out. And of course, it's Johnny Million on Twitch.tv and then Patreon us all. Anyway, so this document is supposedly the linchpin in their argument. And it is, insofar as I can tell, correct me if I'm wrong, 3 degrees of hearsay, right? Is that because because it's a confidential human source telling someone, and this person writing down what they said, because they didn't fill this out themselves. The CHS did not fill out this form themselves. So somebody else filled this form out. That's one step.
And then it was translated, right?
Yes, the CHS, everything he says he heard was translated from Ukrainian or Russian, which they don't speak. So I almost feel like you got to give a layup 2 degrees of hearsay, because how do you know you're being told the truth in the translation, especially when you're in an area where you're like, this place is totally corrupt, right? But let's just give him 1 for that. So that's 2. And then, of course, the allegation by Zlochevsky that he has Biden and, Hunter Biden and Joe Biden on tape allegedly saying these things. 3 degrees of these, of hearsay, essentially, or just simply a made-up story.
At some point, Kevin Bacon's going to pop out.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. It's like, this has nothing to do with me. Please check out the Bacon Brothers. We'll be in Austin in 2 weeks. That's what he'll do. Also, Stir of Echoes is you can rewatch Stir of Echoes. You can't rewatch 6 Degrees of Separation, or The Sixth Sense, rather. You can't rewatch The Sixth Sense, but you can rewatch his movie that came out at the exact same time that was swamped by it. I'm just saying, for the record. So, who's your standing theory on? I know I have my own. Johnny Million. We'll go across the board. Johnny Million. Who do you think the confidential human source actually is? Who do you think that person is? I have my theory.
I think it's a think tank.
Okay, like it's a group of people. Like it's a
just a group of people coming up with the worst ideas to put out there to try to blame someone for.
Okay, well, you might be right about the IRA, the Internet Research Agency types behind Prigozhin and the like, that they crowdsourced essentially this conspiracy and all that and put it together. Sure, and there are multiple people involved in this, being Zlochevsky, the CHS themselves, Ostapenko, who's the guy who met with them in Austria, and
Giuliani.
And I think that's my theory too, because Giuliani was at all these meetings, and somehow there's another trusted source besides America's mayor.
Exactly. Right.
And also, when was this trusted source trusted? At what point were they trusted? Are they trusted now? I don't think so.
He received the most of his payments were during Trump's years as president, right? As president, when he received most of his payments.
Yeah, this trusted source made most of those 6-figure payments during the Trump administration, and this particular FD 1023 was filled out in June of 2020. What else was happening politically in June of 2020? Who was in a primary race that Donald Trump?
Portland was still a thing back then.
Yeah, Portland still existed. It doesn't anymore. Rip Portland. Hashtag Rip Portland. Goodbye, Portland. So sad. It's just a big crater where it used to be. It's so sad. So sad. But do you guys also find it? Well, let's take a break. When we come back, because we have Boston Brian and our audio and issues are completely solved. We're going to take a break. We'll come back right after this. And I want to hear Boston Brian's take on Marjorie Taylor Greene's week of just jumping her own shark, if I dare say myself. We'll be back right after this. Yeah, because
I swear, I do the same thing every single time when I come on here. I never know if it's something I'm doing wrong or what's just like something that happens. I don't know.
Right.
So you just reconnected and it worked?
Well, yeah. I mean, I got an AirPod in. It's not even working. It's just my phone. I'm afraid to take it out of my ear because something will happen.
Yeah, right, because it'll explode. Right. Yeah, I understand the fear. I have it all the time. I will sometimes have my headphones in when they stopped working and I'm just listening through the speakers in case they come back online and I can go, oh, switch. Oh, it's better. That's better.
Yeah.
But they don't. They never do.
Sorry about that.
That's totally fine. Hold on one second. Okay, there we go. And we're going to go to this. Let's see if this works.
Lots going on in Ukraine, huh? In Russia?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, the grain deal is a big part of it, but like this is they're basically doing the cutoff. This is the idea that there's a rope-a-dope going on from the Ukrainian side, and they're basically trying to pull Russian troops back into the no man's land by saying, "Oh, it's really difficult. Oh, we don't want to waste all our gear and people, that kind of stuff."
You.
And then, thank you. And then these guys, they send in troops. They go, "Oh, well, they act on ego."
Oh my God! Wait, did you see this? Hal, Buddha and the Eagle says,
Yes.
"Aloha. Can you ask Hal where we are with the new computer fund? How much more is needed?" And they super chatted a ridiculous amount.
Oh my gosh!
I know I'm only on 1 day a week. I get it. I'm gonna have to jump on
2K away.
GarageBand and start sawing something together. This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Hey, Hal, did you mean something like this?
This is the Hal Sparks Show. Wow, and a guitar note, and then progressive, and all. Yeah, it's gonna be good.
The Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Yeah, it's gonna be good.
Thank you so much, Buddha and the Eagle, and all of our super chatters for helping us get closer to our goal. We're about 2K away from a new computer, and that's the thing. So we're working on it because you know me, my system. I limp by until I can get a computer that will last me another 5 years. You know what I mean? Because there's, and you know this, Johnny Millade, especially in the world of audio and video, there's a point where you're like, you can make incremental changes, and then you're basically just, putting spinners on a Volvo station wagon, right? Yep. At some point, just to keep it alive from, a 78 Volvo station wagon. So, if you're going to bother, it's got to be that next leap forward. So there you go. So thank you so much, guys, for the support in that and everybody, and we love you dearly. Now, this FD 1023 document, which I'm showing on the screen right now, tells the exact same story we heard from all these people. Like there was a point to which Marjorie Taylor Greene came out and basically told what was in it, and everybody's like, she just came out of a skiff and said what she heard in a skiff and whatever. Now, I will say she's too stupid to know what information she shouldn't be sharing and what she should be sharing. And luckily, she can't pronounce any of the names of the people involved, like Zlochevsky and the Ostapenko and the other folks are involved in this.
No, she thinks the skiff is peanut butter she puts on a salmon.
That's right. Yeah. She likes chunky skiff, which in theory. So, what would you like? I know what I think your highlights are for this week, but the highlights of MTG's stuff this week, because she had quite the week.
I mean, just the fact that in a committee hearing in the United States Congress, you have to hold up a sign that says "parental advisory warning." Like,
right.
Wow. I think that is just, it shows a lot on where the Republican Party has come right now, and there was just no point in that. Like,
right.
Let's say all of that happened. What is she proving? I don't understand what she's proving by, letting us know that this kid had a horrible addiction. He's trying to get over it. He seems to have gotten over it. People seem to care about him. Every time you see him in a video or something, people are shaking his hand, they're hugging him, they're saying hello. He seems to be respectful. I don't understand. And she obviously doesn't know anything about history. I mean, comparing the Ukraine war and the brutal Russian invasion to how the Vietnam War started is just asinine. It's just completely asinine. It has no foundation in history whatsoever. There's no comparison that you could possibly think of. I mean, different generations, different reasons, different political outcomes, different ramifications, different weaponry. I mean, the whole 9 yards is different. So just a lot about what she says, and I'm of the mindset to keep them talking. Because I think the more they talk, the more people are gonna be like, "Wow," you know what I mean? Like,
yes.
As long as it's not dangerous, like the video that Trump retruthed yesterday.
Yes.
The one where he made a direct threat basically at the United States government.
Yeah.
Like when it starts getting to that point, that's when action has to be taken to make sure that this society doesn't go into chaos.
Well, that's the question for both you guys. Which direction? How far can you go with this guy before you trigger other violence? And that's what he seems to be betting on, is that you can't that he can say whatever he wants as far as violence. He can make violent threats, because if you actually arrest him or treat him like any other citizen and make him stop doing it or put a gag order on him or any of that stuff, he knows some of his supporters will get violent. And so you've got to weigh the reality of, like, will his supporters be more violent or less violent if we arrest him?
I mean, it's the perfect definition of stochastic terrorism. Basically, he's not telling a single person to do a single thing, but when his message gets out to enough people, statistically, the numbers say that somebody in that group has the chance of being crazy enough to act on those impulses. So, I mean, the more he says it and the more people hear that message, the more chance there is that something really bad is going to happen. I mean, and that's just the definition. That's just the blatant definition of stochastic terrorism. That's what it is.
Well, is then the solution to it to start hitting people, and metaphorically speaking, arresting or pressing charges against people like Marjorie Taylor Greene on their level that aren't Donald Trump, sort of like you would do with a RICO attack. You would work your way up, because if you arrest Donald Trump for stochastic terrorism, for making violent threats against the federal government and as a private citizen, there's a bunch of his crazies that might go nuts. But if you go after some lesser folks and start busting them, maybe there's a groundswell of people going, wait a minute, she just said what Trump says. How come he's getting away with it? Do we have a two-tier justice system?
I mean, he played it right. He knew as soon as he announced his candidacy for president, that he was pretty much had a halo around him, and he could use that as a defense mechanism throughout all these trials that he knew were coming. You know what I mean?
Right.
It wasn't. He announced after. It wasn't they announced these cases after he announced the presidency. He knew these cases were coming down the pipeline. You know what I mean? So he announced as early as he possibly could, so he could start saying, "Oh, look, they're coming after a candidate. They're coming after the top candidate." It's.
Well, I would argue that he literally
saving his ass right now.
Yeah, I would literally argue that he started his campaign when he did, specifically to cover his ass. That he literally started that whole thing when he would have waited, more than likely, like anybody else, and gone after the fundraising like everybody else does, and dragged it out.
And like Michael Cohen always says, he didn't want to win the first time. He thought of it as just a big publicity stunt where he could get his name out there. He didn't even really want to win, and I don't think he wants to win this time. I think he is doing exactly what you said. He's almost forced into it with the trouble that he caused and the legal issues that he's got coming. He had no option. If he didn't run for president, he'd be a sit and duck for these people. We wouldn't even, honestly, we probably wouldn't even be talking about this stuff. They'd already probably have him if he wasn't running for president. And he says the opposite. Oh, if I would have just go away, if I wasn't running, they'd let me skate. And that's just not true. You know what I mean?
As a matter of fact, he's only protected by the fact that he's running, and he can make this, they're attacking their number one opponent. Okay, yes, he is the number one Republican contender, but he's only got 50% of his own party.
He won with over 96%. You know what I mean? It's like, I say that all the time in my TikToks. I'm like, how the hell can you brag about getting 50 to 60% of the vote that you won with 96 or 97% of? I mean, you're literally telling people you're getting less support in your own party than you were before.
And then he asks, he was on with Maria Bartiromo again, because she's one of the people who will serve him up on a hot plate the most. And she goes, how are you going to get, these women in the suburbs and that crowd back on? How are you going to expand the vote? Yeah. And he just blew it off. He's not even interested, because this isn't really about
the 2020 election. He talked about the 2020 election. His answer was the 2020 election was stolen. That was his answer on how can you get suburban women, white voters to turn around and that was his answer.
Right.
Like,
so the question becomes: is he really running for office, or is he really just running from Jack Smith? And at this point, I think
number two.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, if you ask him, he'll tell you.
Fart gun. Income.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Right. Right. Yeah. I like fighting number two. There he is. That's what he says.
Who does number two work for?
Yeah. That's a good question for DeSantis. I want to, if he's interested in being VP, somebody's going to have to ask him that question.
Ryan, obviously, right? According to Donald Trump Jr.
That's right. So and I have this up on screen at infotainmentwars.com and on our Twitch channel, twitch.tv/HalSparks, and the Facebook page, whatever you want to join. And please help by subscribing on patreon.com/HalSparks. But up on the screen right now, I have this article that about Marjorie Taylor Greene, that the fact that the attorney representing Hunter Biden has filed an ethics complaint against Marjorie Taylor Greene for displaying naked pictures of him without consent during a congressional hearing, calling it, quote, a new level of abhorrent behavior. And considering he's saying that about Marjorie Taylor Greene, that's something. A new level of abhorrent behavior.
High bar.
This is a woman whose marriage was wrecked by allegedly sex with a sex guru at her gym, and she has the nerve to. By the way, insofar as we know, and obviously I have no evidence that she wasn't addicted to crack at this time, but according to her and everyone else, I have no evidence that she was using crack at the time that she was engaged in these shenanigans, as Grassley would call them, with this sex guru at her gym. When she was cucking her husband or whatever, whatever the right-wing term for that is of the week, she was not an addict at the time. She was not of any sort. As a matter of fact, she's been a bit of a fitness freak for a long time. As far as I know, she's relatively straight edge. It might be the only thing she and I have in common is that we work out on the regular.
Hold on, I've seen some of her pull-up and shoulder workouts. And she's not going to be able to lift her arm over her head when she's about 55, and that's
no. She
was it just that weird CrossFit disregard for form thing?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's as jerks go, it's the least clean one I've ever seen, and it's not surprising. But go ahead, Brian.
Those work.
Whoops, he was choppy for a second.
He froze. While he's frozen, I need to mention some of the super chats that came in. Therese Rayburn just blew us up.
Oh my gosh.
One of the most amazing super chats I've seen. Tomal622, Elton Fulcher, and Buddha and the Eagle, Carol Cobb. They're absolutely nuts.
Thank you guys so much. I greatly appreciate it, and you're helping us build the show, and we couldn't do it without you. So, and I've often said, not only are these people sweet as the day is long, but they're the most generous chat in existence, and I appreciate it. And they're actual people, if I do say so my darn self. Yeah. And we would lose Boston Brian, connection wise, right as we get near the end of the show. So while he's sort of on break from us, by accident, I want to remind everybody, check out Boston Brian's stuff on, he's calling in on another source. That's fun. Oh, no, that's Philip. Okay,
or that's Phil.
It is Phil. Phil's waiting in the wings. But I want to thank Boston Brian for being in here. He's going to be on my show next Friday, I hope. We're going to try and get him on again, and it'll be smoother and easier, hopefully, in the future as we try to expand our guest list here on the show. And I can't thank him enough for jumping in with us today. Don't forget, check out all of his work on his TikTok and his Midas Touch work, and he's wonderful. And we got to take a break, and we'll be back right after this with Philip Bittner, and we'll see you soon. Brian, if you're watching, we'll be back. Oh, GMB 27, right there. Thank you.
Isn't that Gary, GMB 627?
Mm-hmm. Lovely. Okay, let me set us up. Hold on one second. Excuse me.
Bless you. 2 times.
Bam. All right, let's get back into studio mode. We'll get me and Johnny and Phil in here. At this one, you discussed even yourself. Let me get in
I was
here.
saving that up for you, Phil.
Hold on one second. I'm bringing him in. Paste that in there. Okay. And it should pop up.
Hal, do you have a public-facing email address?
Yes, I do. It's the bookhal at iCloud. Bookhal at iCloud.com. That's the one on my website.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. And then we'll bring in Philip Bittner right here. There he is. Fantastic.
Hey.
Hi.
Hey, Phil.
And all I got to do is put names on everything because I haven't done that yet. But we'll do that during the break. As you do. Go back in here. Excellent.
Is Boston Brian still trying to be on here?
I don't know if he's trying to pop back in and say hi and bye. I don't know. Well, if he does, I'll figure out a way to get him in here. By golly,
that'll be amazing.
Or his phone's just trying to reconnect. What was that? That was something.
That was.
No.
Me.
Okay, good. That's what I thought. Let's go to here. We'll go to there.
That was me.
Easy. I know that was you. That was definitely. We got that. We got that straight.
Did that so Phil could say I work with children.
Right. Yeah. Well, consistency.
If the fart gun works, then, or if the fart doesn't sound.
If the fart gun fits.
If the fart sound fits, then
there you go.
You must not quit.
You must quit.
You mustn't quit.
We're mixing far too many metaphors.
We are, absolutely. I'm proud of us.
Metaphors.
I think I finally got my phone working again, which will allow me to get back onto my Hotmail account, which yes, I still have, so that I can.
Adorable.
That's the final stage. That's the final stage in getting my recovering from the identity fraud attack.
Oh, right. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm going to shrink this down a little bit and put it over here so we get this there. And yeah, I think Brian's phone is reconnecting on the regular.
Maybe.
But if it does, I don't, like I said, well, you might just be, jumping in with the fun of it. Let's go here. And I'm almost ready with the Johnny and the Million to give you put your name in there. And we'll get this in just a second. There he is. Doing a little behind the scenes. And thanks, chat room, for your help today. That's just lovely beyond measure. Oh, I can't. These wonderful people. It's just, yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. And then I think, let's see. Let's go to this one. And then, there we go. Look at that. It's us.
Yay.
Mm-hmm. And we'll be back with Chicago in just a moment. And I'm gonna have an offline. Thank you. I'm gonna have an offline meeting with Boston Brian and get him all hooked up so that his streaming setup and all that is firing on all cylinders, like what Johnny Million and I sometimes go through when we're, when Johnny will sometimes text me and what is this thing with the thingy thing here? Does that happen to you? And I'll go, yes, it does. And this is what happened. This is how you remedy it as best you can.
You're listening to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
I've had people walk out of me before, but not when I was being so charming.
Video streaming at halsparks.com.
I don't care for you or for the putrid sludge you're troweling out.
Puss-faced little pimpstick.
True progressive talk.
Might be a good time for you guys to give up.
Welcome to the show. I want to thank Boston Brian again for jumping through multiple hoops to be on the show with us, and he'll be on my live stream, and please check out his stuff as well. But joining us right now from Ukraine is our dear friend Philip Bittner, who, there's plenty of news coming out of Ukraine right now, and every time I turn around, there's a huge update. So let's get started, though, with the biggest concern that most of the chat has whenever we talk to Phil is, how are you, and are you safe?
Yeah, I'm as safe as anybody is in Ukraine, but
right.
I'm okay. I'm still recovering from a concerted identity
hack
theft, attack.
Yep.
I was targeted clearly by somebody either MAGA or Z Russian, because my Twitter feed was taken over, and you can still see my old posts where I'm talking about let's support Ukraine as much as we can. But then from Wednesday, they turned to attacking Michelle Obama and promoting a far right MAGA podcast. So
I like the way you gaslight, Phil.
Yeah.
Right.
So I apparently am ticking off somebody. I'm upsetting somebody. So I'll take that. I must be doing something
making the right people angry.
I am making somebody angry, and that's
right.
if they're angry at me supporting Ukraine, it means that
They're on
that's
the
an
wrong
enemy.
side.
That's right. That's an enemy I'm willing to take on.
Right. Well, at the
But
very
it is
least, I'm
also a
glad.
pain in the backside.
Yes, it
Yeah.
is. It's a pain in the tuchus, no doubt.
But that's okay.
And
I'm not going anywhere. I'm not
right.
going. They can't shut me down.
I have to. I honestly, I think you did it to yourself just to show just how tough you are. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. Like, yeah, gutsy.
Oh, if only.
That's right. So, there. I think the biggest piece of news, oddly, this week for me was the pickle arrest. Gherkin got arrested.
I was in the back of my brain. I was sitting there thinking, which one is Hell going to pick? There's about 6 he could go with, but yeah, Gherkin's a big one.
Yeah. So explain to everybody who he is and why it's kind of a big deal that they arrested him.
Yeah, Gherkin is a terrible human being. He is he was in 2014 the head of the Donetsk People's Republic, the breakaway republic in eastern Ukraine that was supported as a separatist movement by Moscow. Gherkin is responsible for the downing of MH17, the Dutch airline, the airliner, Malaysian airliner that came from Holland, was shot down in 2014 in Ukrainian airspace by a Buk missile system, which is, you don't buy those at the local Walmart. That's a big piece of kit. So it was given to them by the Russians. Gherkin used it and shot down a civilian airliner. He was tried in absentia in a Dutch court, and instead of spending his time in a Dutch prison, apparently he would prefer to spend time in a Russian prison, because the news is just in the last, 36, 48 hours, he has been detained and will most likely be spending several hours in a Russian jail. So, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Now, why did he get arrested? Why now? Gherkin has been outspoken in his criticism of the war. So much so that people were wondering why it is he was walking around free, much like Prigozhin. So he's been hypercritical of the way the war has been going. He mostly is on the same page with Prigozhin in that he is critical of the Ministry of Defense, Shoigu and Gerasimov. He has occasionally, however, spoken out against Putin himself, which is why a lot of people speculated, why is he still around? Anyhow, this all kind of supports what I've been saying for months now, in that I think there is this fight going on between the power brokers beneath the level of Putin to try and gain political and power supremacy so that they can ultimately decide what happens in a post. And Putin is part of this because he's going to want to get whoever succeeds in this struggle has got to be someone that's going to give him the best deal, i.e. he walks away without going to prison or slipping in on a bar of soap or falling out a window.
Sure.
So this is clearly more of the fight that's going on amongst what I call the boyar class. But Gherkin is a big deal because he's a very bad man. He had actually left separatist territory in Ukraine and was living inside Russia, which is how they were able to nab him so easily. But he deserves everything he's going to get. I have no sympathy. He's a terrible person, responsible for a lot of death.
I think the biggest question, though, for a lot of people, and this is the part that confused everybody, was that he and Prigozhin are basically saying the exact same thing, in varying degrees, I suppose. And Prigozhin's basically gets his own country and a free trip to summer camp, and this dude gets arrested. So the question is, is it a matter of strong man stuff, or
Prigozhin's a bigger fish, 100%. Gherkin is he's a big fish in a small pond, whereas Prigozhin is a small fish in a big pond, sort of thing. But look, he has been Gherkin has been very, very vocal. in his criticism of how the war is going, and he's been critical of the way that lives have been thrown away, because as head of the Donbass People's Republic, he saw the militias that were founded by actual residents of Donbass, and Donetsk, in particular Donetsk. He's the head of the Donetsk People's Republic, unless my wires got crossed and I at some point said Donbass. I want to be perfectly clear: Donetsk People's Republic.
Yeah.
He's been very vocal about how his militia was just thrown into the meat grinder. In as a sidebar, those who say that Russia is defending their lovely people in Donetsk or Luhansk, well then why did they just use their militias like cannon fodder? He's been very vocal about that, about how like Moscow had no regard for his fighters. They just churned them up and chucked them, with no support. So he may. I mean, I'm surprised it took this long to put him in prison. But again, I think there's still maneuvering going on. And the terrible thing about it, Hal, is that we may not have seen the last of Gherkin, because what might happen is that he might get rehabilitated. There's going to be waves of this. We have to anticipate that there's going to be machinations that will be going on, and people will fall out of favor. They will be brought back into favor as the power ebbs and flows in different ways. So don't think Gherkin is just gone. He's not. They're going to be, Prigozhin might find himself in a jail at some point, and then be rehabilitated from his sense of exile, which I argue is an exile because Belarus is not a sovereign state. He could be rehabilitated if Shoigu, falls out of favor, or if Patrushev, the head of the intelligence agencies, who's another boyar, or the former prime minister, whose name always bothers me, Kisilyev. All of these disparate boyars are going to rise and ebb, and it's gonna be very chaotic, and a lot of stuff is going to be done in the shadows, and people's profile will be in favor, and then it will be out, and there will be blood, there will be casualties, there will be collateral damage as these different guys fight one another. Their various henchmen and thugs and supporters are going to end up with bullets in the streets of Moscow. It's going to get worse, and this will contribute to the sense of uncertainty and chaos within the capital in St. Petersburg and other locations, which is exactly what the Russians didn't want, and why they made this social contract with Vladimir Putin at the end of the 90s, that this kind of chaos wouldn't continue. Because as somebody who lived in Moscow in the 90s, I can tell you there was car bombings and shootings and assassinations very regular as these kind of power structures fought against themselves, and we're starting to see it again. It will be interesting to see whether the citizens, your average citizens of Petersburg or Moscow in particular, will do anything about this. But stay tuned, because arrests like this, the uprising like Prigozhin, it's all one whole thing. These are not isolated. This is all part of these battle lines that are being fought out in the dark, in the shadows, and we only occasionally see it when it hits critical mass.
I also want to point out that this is the week that Russia hit the 250,000 dead mark on their side by their own admission, and this is not just
that's their count. What is it really?
Right. Well, they're
in less than 18 months. They were in Afghanistan for 10 years, and they didn't.
And
lose,
they lost
12,000
less.
A fraction, and it helped to bring down the Soviet Union. So if you're going to tell me that Vladimir Putin's going to survive this, I say, that.
So 10 years in Afghanistan and a fraction of the losses.
A 10.
Yeah.
A 10. 10 years, a tenth of the
versus
casualty
a year.
rate.
Yeah, basically.
Versus 18 months and 10 times as much as they lost in Afghanistan.
What a disregard just for humanity.
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, that's the essence. Yeah. That is precisely why, if you want a singular reason, why you don't want Russia running things. Ever.
Yes. Yes.
Ever. If you're, and by the way, even if you believe in the tough guy theory behind them, you don't want them being your boss, much less, if you're going to say like the U.S. in Iraq or Vietnam or China and, in Xinjiang, blah, blah, blah. If you want to spread around and do a whataboutism, you don't want to be on the receiving end of any of that stuff, but you definitely don't want to be on the serving end of the Russian side, which is even more fascinating. Both sides are equally as bad. They are killing as many as they are losing just for the sake of doing it. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this. It's the Hal Sparks Radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Just sick
yeah.
stuff. I spent the day yesterday working on a vlog about, I don't want to give too much away, but about the psychological toll, like PTSD and handling the mental injuries that are here. And I spoke with a good many people, and one of the topics we discussed was how different it is between Ukraine and Russia in terms of like taking care of your people. And there's the work that Ukraine is going through to help both soldiers and citizens who are suffering from real serious mental strain. And our, mental health is a serious issue right now. Make no bones about it. But the alternative is, yes, we'll talk about that. But the alternative is what the Russians do, which is, how dare you complain about your mental health? How selfish of you. Okay, Johnny. How dare you whine and moan about your mental health? How dare you that we're at war? It's the state that's important, not you as a whiny little so-and-so. Here's a bottle of vodka, go deal with it.
Right.
It's just, these are very different systems, and which would you rather live under? So you're absolutely right to bring it up. And I can't wait to talk about the big boom that I saw you queuing up there.
Yeah, that is hold on one second.
Story.
Yeah. That's the Crimean airfield.
Mm-hmm.
Or which one are we talking about? Because there's multiple ones.
Yeah, well, I was looking at the video you were rolling there. That's the Crimean ammo depot next to the airfield.
That's right. Yep. And them. It's interesting. You watch this. It's a huge explosion. It's overwhelmingly large. Yeah. There's a car driving in the direction of it, like they have to go there. But then these two Z trucks just come out of the side, where they're like, "Get our stuff away from here, unless they hit it again."
Just incredible.
Yeah. Just crazy. So we'll do that.
That was
1 second.
That wasn't a strike. It was. Thanks, Chicago.
I don't think
Hello,
so.
By the way,
I think it was just smoking again.
Yeah. No, it was somebody blew it up. I don't think they're. I think it's not in range yet, until they get the attackums over here.
Yeah.
That's a lot of Crimea is.
Attention. Stop what you're doing. Because we're coming back to the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
Oh my God!
They went a little crazy with it, and I appreciate it.
Now let's get back with Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So there's they often talk about the idea of the frog in boiling water theory, that eventually stuff starts to grow. And when we talk about Russian politics, it seems to be a similar kind of thing in terms of cooking their politics in general, is that it just simmers and nobody notices, and then pow, everything happens all at once. And interestingly enough, I'm sure, Philip Bittner, you saw this story about the boiling water in the shopping center in Moscow. I don't know if you heard about this one. So we always have these issues with Russians smoking near things that are explosive. But there was this other story, basically a boiling water main from a heat system broke and boiled people alive. There were 2 people killed and a bunch of other people who were injured because boiling water shot out at them in a mall. Now, again, let's just talk about functioning government, shall we? Like the U.S., we recently had a bridge fall down in Pennsylvania, and they said it would take years to fix. And between the new Democratic governor of the state, and the Biden administration, they fixed it in 2 weeks. 2 weeks. And what you were just talking about, the attackums coming, and that according to Zhdanov, I don't know how to say that guy's name at all. That's kind of amazing. Zhdanov. Oleg Zhdanov named the number of long-range ATACMS missiles that will help Ukraine turn the tide of the war. In his opinion, 1,000 missiles are needed. The issue of victory will be resolved within a few months, just when the ATACMS arrive. This is his theory. I'll show you what he said. This is ballistic missile with a range of 300 kilometers. I would like to know what I would call it, missile Neberuchka. Russia does not have the means to combat this missile. I think this is why Russia is constantly hysterical when the question is raised. Give us ATACMS. If we were given 500 to 1,000 missiles, I think within a few months we could fundamentally solve the issue of this war. I am not saying that we will win 100%, but the course of the war will be completely different. The war will be more dynamic, and it would be in our favor. And then along with that, and I want to get your take on this as well, is that the cluster bombs are already there. The cluster munitions are already present there. There's the casing of one of them from an older video, I think earlier, from the Russian side. But a new video reportedly shows Ukraine launching cluster munitions against Russian infantry in the Donetsk Oblast. In the aerial video, bright points of light bursts where the munitions explode across the battlefield. It's a powerful visual how the controversial and devastating weapons will work. So there are a couple of other, aspects of this, but your take on both of those aspects, the ATACMS being, necessary, and what their arrival will mean to the war effort, and then of course the fact that the cluster munitions are already there, it seems.
Yeah, the prospect of the ATACMS getting here in time for the Ukrainian campaign. I prefer to call it a campaign as opposed to a counteroffensive, because again they're moving, they're moving the line down the gridiron, as it were. It will get them within range of Crimea, and that will then allow them to ATACMS will allow them to attack all the support infrastructure that is in Crimea. It will allow them to attack the naval base there in Sevastopol, which is essential to the entire war effort. It's really one of the major reasons why Russia is conducting this war. It will be a devastating change, because it will also outpace anything that the Russians have, outdistance anything that the Russians have. So that will allow the Ukrainians to fire on Russians without Russians being able to respond. That'll change the whole dynamic about where the front lines are, the depth of those lines, because when we talk about, you got to understand, in a war, and I've been to my fair share, a front line is not some sort of little delineated, like, hair's breadth line. There's a good 10-mile space on either side where all the infrastructure is, and all the kind of like supplies, and also artillery, and chain of command and control, and everything that makes a war effort possible for the actual very, very tip of the spear, where actually you do have guys with AK-47 shooting at one another. But a front line really contains an awful lot more. If they're able to fire ATACMS way beyond the Russian lines and the Russian infrastructure to their deep supply routes, it will change the entire dynamic of that front line. So it's going to be, I know it's been said that it's, this is the game changer. This is the game changer. And the slow walking of equipment has been very frustrating for many Ukrainians and those of us who support Ukraine. But I'm telling you, HIMARS was a big deal. Getting the 155 millimeter howitzers, the M77 systems, that was a big deal. Getting Bradleys was a big deal. Getting main battle tanks, that was a big deal. But ATACMS is going to be another big deal, and it's going to hasten the end of the war, because this war clearly, there has to be a victor. Obviously, as in all wars, there will have to be a negotiated peace settlement, but given the existential threat on both sides of the equation, Ukrainian and Russian, ultimately somebody's going to have to be the victor on the battlefield, and we need to get to peace through victory. Nobody likes war. I hate war. I hate being in war. I hate being here under fire. But I'm telling you, the Russians will not stop until they are beaten. And we have to beat them, as reprehensible as that is. Sorry.
So, no. There's a couple of things. And before we get to the break, we're going to take questions from our chat room.
Real quick.
Yes, go ahead.
Real quick.
Yeah.
Real quick, because you asked about the ATACMS and you asked about the cluster munitions. Look, the cluster munitions are going to work. They are working. We're getting the Ukrainian. And a Ukrainian officer spoke to me recently. He said, this country is so awash in munitions from its bloody history. That includes World War I and World War II. Every couple of weeks, before the war even started, people were finding unspent munitions from the 1930s and 40s. This place, sadly, because of its tragic history, has munitions everywhere. So the Ukrainian officer who said, yeah, we're getting cluster weapons, and yes, they might be left over, but you know what? We're already awash in unspent munitions. This place is going to take, long time before we're cleaned up. So,
well, and also, again, there is a distinct difference. And Zelensky has said there's going to be an effort to clean up afterwards. And the difference between the mines you lay yourself and the mines that someone else lays, or the bombs that you drop yourself and the bombs that someone else drops, is that you know where they landed and you know where they were put. And therefore, when it's all over, you can go get them or destroy them or protect the area. Go, this is the outside range of what that cluster munition was that we haven't cleaned up yet. Please stay away from this area until we get it cleaned up. You can do that with your own bombs. You cannot do that with the other side's stuff. And with any, at least to this point. Now with satellite imagery and all kinds of other stuff, we definitely have a better chance at it now. But like I said, we're going to take questions after the break. But one of the other aspects that we're going to need to talk about, of course, and I'm sure there will be questions about as well, is the grain deal. So this week, the Russians, because blaming the blowing up of the Kerch Bridge, decided that they're not going to engage in the grain deal anymore, and that they're not even going to let Turkey, who's been playing footsie with them for a while, basically chaperone these shipments in and out of Ukraine. They're just going to shut it down entirely because they're moving to, starvation as a weapon, in the same way that they were looking at freezing people to death as a weapon during the winter. Will it work? Probably not. It'll just make them look like genocidal psychopaths. But the question is, how do they, do you really think the Russians will strike? That's a question I have. Do you think the Russians are going to strike a grain ship anytime soon, and set this thing on an even darker path than it already is?
I don't know. They can try. Using food and hunger against the Ukrainians by the Russians is such a disgusting, cynical attack, given their history of the Holodomor, where somewhere around 7 million people were purposely starved to death by Stalin, is just one of the most reprehensible, disgusting, cynical attacks. Now, in order to attack a grain shipment, should a grain shipment leave Odessa or some other port city, and the Russians attack it, it will show them to be the monsters that they are. And also, if it's a surface ship, it will come under the potential of attack by the Ukrainians, because the Ukrainians, keep in mind, they sank the Moskva, they sank the Black Sea Fleet flagship because they have capacity. Many of us in the press corps here are well aware that the United Kingdom, the Brits, emptied their entire stockpile of their Harpoon anti-ship missiles at the beginning of this conflict, this full-fledged conflict, and those have not fully been used. So if they want to come to the western side of the Black Sea and try to attack a grain shipment with using a surface vehicle, a frigate or a destroyer, they will come under fire from these Harpoon missile systems. Now, they could use their submarine fleet, and that's a serious issue. But the Ukrainians have shown themselves to have capacity to sink their to sink their surface ship. So they can try, but they'll be putting themselves at danger.
Right. We got to take a break. We'll be back right after this with news of a ammo depot explosion in Crimea that is got quite the footage. I'll show it on my channel at infotainmentwars.com. We'll be back right after this. Yeah, that's this guy right here.
We had another amazing super chat from James Etling.
Oh, thank you,
he
James.
Says he'd like to go to maxing out the RAM on the new laptop. Hashtag Motang.
No, that's a tough one because the and it's not a laptop. It's a desktop that we're building. So that's hard. That's these things. I think it has 128 gig of as max RAM on it, and you got to do it ahead of time. That's the conundrum I'm in. It's because the studio, which is great, value for the money, but once it's built, it's built. You can't do anything later. And then the cheese grater one, they just made the Mac Pro, the new M2 chip and all that stuff, which is great. And you can put cards in it and all that, but its base model is the top of the studio. But you can grow with it.
You and I should have, Hal, you and I should have a conversation off air.
Okay.
About all of this.
I disagree.
Okay.
Seriously.
Okay, it's a deal. Yeah.
No one can replace you, Johnny. Don't be jealous.
That's right.
Hal and I almost never talk offline.
We're going to replace him with Johnny number 5. Johnny 5 is alive.
Do not disassemble.
No, yeah, no. In all seriousness, let's do that soon. Let's get it that soon.
Yeah,
I might be able to help you there. So.
Oh, nice. All right. Well, please, yeah, all help is welcome in that regard. Because the back and forth and just like building the show and designing it and putting all these things together and having to I'm like
sure.
all the time.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, let's see. What about maybe getting you an engineer?
Well, that's a matter of Patreon. So we got to get, just like we got to get to 500 Patreon subscribers to get a producer. So CSL could help and all that kind of stuff, and we could, make this worth Johnny's while a little bit. Right? The next step the next marker, the 1,000 Patreon thing is engineer time. That's because it just requires somebody who's borderline full-time tech as far as the daily live stream and the weekend show, and so it's a serious undertaking. Thank you.
Thanks, Chicago.
Yeah,
well, let's have a chat in private.
Okay, great.
You're locked into the Hal Sparks radio program, Mega Worldwide.
So we're talking about during this break a little bit the explosion at the ammo depot, which the video I'm showing right now online, which has these Z trucks bugging out with getting the gear as far away, the explosive stuff away from the big explosion as far as they can. It seems. It's enormous. Like seeing an explosion that size in your sky. You're talking about the trauma in general of just war as it is, but and I'm not completely unsympathetic to Russian sympathizing Ukrainians and Ukrainian sympathizing Russians and Russians who find themselves in Ukraine. That mix and mingle that is the Donbass over the years, it only goes so far. But I get how especially the old ones who have just lived through this nonsense for decades and decades and decades can just become numb to it, and then this all dust up comes and they're not going anywhere. It's like that old lady you were talking about where they were trying to remove her from, I think it was Kharkiv, trying to get this lady out of the area to save her life. Kherson. Yeah, Kherson. Yeah,
she was 86 years old, and the debate was, is it more risk to her life to move her, or is it more of a risk to her life as the waters were rising from the dam that got blown?
Yeah, and this area where this explosion is going off looks like Shelbyville, Kentucky. It looks like, any number of places in the Midwest or the South that I've been through or to in my lifetime or have relatives living in. It is not surprising at all, the architecture's the same, the power lines, everything, like it looks so familiar, and yet there's this giant explosion in the background. And we were talking about this particular place. Can you catch us up on the story behind this one, because it was in Oktyabrsk.
Oktyabrska, I believe it is actually. Don't have the document up in front of me, but it's adjacent to an airfield, and so it was where they kept a lot of their munitions and their support for jet fuel, things like that, in support of the airfield. So it was a perfectly legitimate target, you talk about the familiarity of things. I mean, it's so easy for Ukrainians to infiltrate because they have this shared language, and they kind of know. I mean, heck, in Crimea, there are probably Ukrainians who are part of the Ukrainian armed forces who came from Crimea in 2014 when it was taken over. So this is one of an insurgency, partisan armed force for the Ukrainians to sneak into Crimea, or for that matter, in lots of places in the Russian Federation, is part of this conflict.
Right.
So. And you're absolutely 100% right as well. I mean, it's important to also understand that Crimea, for Russians, is kind of like like back when before Cuba was communist, and kind of it was so close to Florida that it was this kind of place where it wasn't really ours, but we kind of treated it like it was because it was so easy to get to.
It was a vacation spot.
I mean, a lot of Russians have summer homes in Crimea. I mean, back when I lived in Moscow in the 90s, this is how messed up it was for Ukrainians and Russians. Is I was allowed a visa that only let me go out of the country 3 times. Right, I could kind of go 3 times a year. But the hubris of the Russians was such that they didn't consider going to Ukraine leaving the country. So it didn't break any of my 3 departures and returns sort of thing.
Right.
And this is their mentality about Crimea in particular, in the Black Sea. It's theirs. It may not, strictly speaking, it may not be, but ultimately it's ours.
Yeah.
Like my friend who has a summer home, and she's posting right now pictures of the sea from her summer home in Feodosia in the Crimean Peninsula. This is their mentality. So to see it blow up, to see there being these explosions, and then to see the bridge go up, and then once we get ATACMS on the Ukrainian side, to see that kind of thing, the threat that, and just how disturbing it is to be at your summer home and suddenly there's a big boom and there's a smoke plume going up. I mean, it's very, it's disturbing. It is.
Yeah.
We as human beings have our fight or flight instinct really deeply ingrained, and when you see something go boom, the general instinct is to run from it. But there they are at their homes watching stuff blow up. So there's a psychological element to all of this as well, aside from denying the Russians jet fuel and ammunition.
Right. Insofar as like reminding these people that they are not where they are supposed
to be.
You're at
war. And also, you're at war. Don't think you can get away with it and just have the Ukrainians suffer from this foolish war that your leader started. You are at war.
And the extent of which is so serious that, Biden had called up some reservists to go to Europe specifically last week or the early week before. And a lot of people were like, oh, we're getting troops off the ground and blah, blah, blah. No. You know what they're actually doing? They're digging trenches in NATO countries in case Russia decides to make good on its we should just blow everybody up and attack everybody at the same time stuff. They're forcing our defensive hand. And so this is the activity they're engaged in. This is what our troops are actually doing right now. They are studying the process of and digging trenches in NATO countries just in case. In Finland,
because there is sadly sadly and disturbingly, there is a possibility that this flows over. Now, ultimately, the responsibility will be Moscow's. I do not accept that we have provoked Russia into this war.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Ultimately, they're the ones who are doing the trigger pulling. They could have talked. We could have done
they could get out tomorrow.
Different things. They could get out tomorrow. That's 100% right. So I'm sad to see that NATO is having to do that, that American forces are having to do that. Romania, Poland, the Baltic states, they're all, just in case it spills over. And that's the right thing to do, because you don't want to start digging, after Moscow decides to do something even more foolish than what they're already doing. But I mean, you see these statements, we haven't talked about this yet, but you see these statements coming out of Vladimir Putin where he's talking about how Poland is wanting to take over Western Ukraine and this kind of stuff, where he's already looking at a bigger picture conflict. You see, Russian, state actors and like it was an intelligence guy, I think I saw, suggesting that they explode a nuclear weapon in the Arctic to send a message. These are all decisions that Russia is doing to this irresponsible and dangerous kind of perspective, whereas where they're thinking, if we're going to go down, we're going to take everybody with us, right? Which is scary. Of course it's scary, but the alternative is to give in to a bully. So I hate seeing that happen in Romania and Poland and the Balts. I hate seeing more American soldiers being sent over here to be away from their families and all the rest of it. But the responsibility lies with Moscow. All they have to do is leave and this war ends.
Right. And I don't know why that clarification is lost on so many of these ridiculous people that are even on, Russia was attacked side, or Russia, feared for its own safety or whatever. Well, first of all, if it didn't want to grow NATO, it's done the exact opposite. And secondly, nobody pushed anybody to attack anybody. Like the idea that political violence in and of itself is somehow... these people apparently complained, and rightly so, about the attack on the Capitol. So why, an obviously unprovoked attack on, by maggots who felt like their America is being taken away? That's in their own territory, much less another country or whatever. You thought the Iraq war was wrong, then you got to agree that this is wrong. If you think that what the Israelis are doing to the Palestinians at times is wrong because of their territorial disputes, then you got to think this is wrong. And if you don't, then it says more about your opinion of the people involved than the action itself. It's not an ethical consideration. That said, questions from the chat room. Let's grab at least one before we go.
Quickly, okay, sure. But I just want to say real quickly, it also just reinforces this concept of America as the irreplaceable country. And a lot of people bristle at that because it leads to the perceived American imperialism. But I would argue that saying that every wrong or every ill that happens on the globe is because of America also plays into this idea of this indispensable, unique position of the United States, and gives them, it makes it, America this... Well, I mean, it's everything in everything.
Look, all the Omen and Devil movies are all Omen and Devil movies are effectively Christian propaganda, because no matter how bad the bad guy is, he's he's the responsibility and the offshoot of the primary, and there is no primary, there is no secondary without the primary, and therefore it's just even further proof that God is everywhere and of all things and that kind of thing. That's the irony of those kind of movies. But let's grab a question before we go to the break.
Yeah, this is from Tim Farrell. Can you ask Phil what he thinks of Putin's threats to take part of Poland and the reports of 100,000 troops on the Polish border?
Yeah. Well, we just chatted about that. Thanks for that question, Tim. Always a pleasure. Look, what Putin was doing with that statement is he is trying to stoke tensions between Poland and Ukraine. Western Ukraine, Galicia is the region in particular. For centuries, the Poles, not to go too back, but the Polish-Lithuanian Commonwealth fought over Galicia with the Russian Empire for centuries, basically. And so he is trying to stoke up this tension between Poland and Western Ukraine, because there was a time when Poland laid claim to that stretch of territory. It's not going to work. It's not going to work, not least of which because there has been active reconciliation efforts between Warsaw and Kiev. I've been to the Polish cemetery in Lviv, where there are in turn thousands of Polish who fought in the Polish-Ukrainian wars in the post-Bolshevik revolution of the last century. They don't hate each other like that anymore. By and large, of course, there are extremists everywhere, but by and large, and so by Putin trying to stoke that up, he just further shows how out of touch and ignorant about how the world has moved past him, and he can't conceive of it. That's not going to happen. Warsaw is not going to lay claim to Lviv or Lutsk or Ivan-Frankivsk. Nor is Romania going to go for the territories in the Carpathians. It also indicates how out of touch Putin is when he doesn't understand that how much the European Union has changed things on the continent. It's ignorant. It's stupid. It's a ploy to try and sow division. And it ain't going to work. Now, the 100,000 troops that Tim is referring to, I believe he's referring to the Kharkiv front. We are aware that there has been a massive influx of Russian armor and troops because apparently they're trying to draw away Ukrainian forces from their central and southern eastern lines. The offensive is outside of Zaporizhia and then down around Kherson. That's where that's where a lot of the push is coming from the Ukrainian armed forces. Pardon me. And the Russians are clearly trying to draw them away by making it a feint towards the northern eastern city of Kharkiv, which is close to the Russian border. That also is not going to work. I mean, look, they may have to readjust and send some forces, the Ukrainians might, to have to deal with some of the armor in particular. But I have been to Kharkiv many, many times. Kharkiv is a fortress city. It is a city of steel and armor. And if the Russians want to come, it will be a bloodbath. So there's no good option for the Russians.
No, I have to say it sounds very Trumpy. It sounds like a lot of chicken feathers and boasting in an attempt to just almost check for flinching, like that we talk about that sort of redneck flinch game or whatever that I grew up with in the South, and there's a little bit of that going on in this kind of like goof machismo version of politics that he actually thinks will work. We got to take a break. We'll be back with more of your questions right after this. It's Hal Sparks radio program Mega Worldwide on WCPT Radio, Chicago's Progressive Talk. Now with 100% more Johnny Million, and our dear friend Philip Bittner will be taking more of your questions right after we get back. And that's his ceiling right now. We can see his ceiling right now.
Well, I had to go grab something for the happy ending, didn't I?
All right, and it's a hidden.
Well, Johnny left before the full unveiling, but we'll do it again. Why not? What fun!
Right on.
He saw it.
Yeah, I did. I saw the sneak preview.
Yeah, and the chat was very good at keeping it a secret, but I'm going to show it again.
Kept it quiet.
That's right. Yeah, this is the Kerch Bridge right now. It looks like a busted femur.
It's just, oh man, you're right. Look at that
crack.
Yeah,
it looks like looks like an X-ray of somebody's broken leg. It's terrible. And the fact that they're having like passenger cars drive over a chunk of it just to go like it's fine is insane.
Yeah, slowly one by one. Yeah, it's crazy.
Ugh.
And the fact that they're like encouraging Russian citizens to come.
Yeah.
Have your summer vacation. Don't be afraid. Come on. And if you're really patriotic, and if you have to, do the land bridge thing. Drive through Mariupol and down along the embankment of the Azov Sea. Just don't get out of your car because the roads are likely mined. Just what I want in the summer vacation.
Yeah.
Dad, I need to pull over and take a wee. Not
just
today, son. They're mine.
Be on a fuse.
Yeah.
Stand by. Coming back.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Excellent. And there we go.
I am happy, you are happy. Let us be happy together, whether the weather is cloudy or sunny. I will always be your funny honey bunny. I am lucky, you are lucky. Let us get lucky together, whether the weather is cloudy or breezy. I'll be there to say, hey, come on, let's take it easy. Because isn't it nice to have the friends that you do? And isn't it nice that the sky is so blue? And isn't it nice to say I love you, chugga chugga choo choo, woo woo. I am smiling, you are smiling. Let us smile together. Whether the weather is cloudy or stormy, I will still be there in the morning. I'll be right by your side in the morning. I'll make you breakfast in the morning. I hope that you like cereal.
Yay! Thank you so much, Philip Bittner's showing off his wares, if I do say so my damn self, in the chat on our live stream at infotainmentwars.com. Please subscribe today to the YouTube channel. It helps us out, and we're expanding. We hit 53K, and we're going for 100. Once we hit 100, it's smooth sailing. So if you're subscribed anywhere else, subscribe to us as well. It doesn't cost you anything. Ooh, that was a squeak. You put the cap back on one of those things, didn't you?
I did.
That's a good one. That I felt that one in my fillings.
Oh yeah.
So for those of you that are listening at home, where theater, or radio is the theater of the mind, Philip got a nesting doll of the guys in Kiss. Presumably, I assume it's for me. I don't know that he wanted it that badly, but I certainly.
It is.
Oh, thank you. As gifts go, thank you very much. It's very exciting. And inside of it, Johnny Million, is Paul Stanley. The smallest one is Paul Stanley's Washburn Lion guitar.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because
some Ukrainian is a big member of the Kiss Army, and
yeah, absolutely.
There's proof.
Some are even members of the Kiss Navy. There's a Kiss Air Force as well. I got stripes from all of them. That said,
I didn't notice
lots
this.
of
Look, here's the guy's signature.
Oh, there he goes.
There you go.
Yeah. See, hand
Go to
painted.
this guy and order more.
Right. That is quality.
Anyhow, sorry.
All right, so let's grab some more questions before we run out of time, because I'll get off on a tangent, and then there we go. So, Johnny Million, who do we have and what do we have?
All right, so Miss P-Dubs is asking if Phil has heard anything about Prigozhin.
Well, the last I heard of the Prigozhin was that he was bouncing around inside the Russian Federation. He's actually been relatively quiet in the last few days. That might be connected to Gherkin's Strelkov. Igor Strelkov, Igor Gherkin's.
I'm not sure you could say Strelkov Gherkin on the radio. I'll have to check.
Yeah, no, we're about to get banned.
That's not. Yeah.
I work
I
with
had
children.
I had a beat off.
Anyhow, but Prigozhin has not been. There's no headline that's grabbed my attention in the last 72 hours.
It is sock draw.
But no, I haven't heard it. I haven't heard a big thing on Prigozhin in the last few days. So, but he's not going anywhere. Trust me, he's not. He is not done. Vladimir Putin has a purpose for Prigozhin. Otherwise, Prigozhin would be dead or in jail. The only reason why he is not is because Putin doesn't want him there. Putin doesn't do anything unless he thinks there's a use for it. So Prigozhin's time is not done yet. I mean, I know stuff about the Wagner group. We can talk a little bit about that in the sense that we do know that there are Wagner guys, forces that are moving into Belarus and taking up positions in various camps. So we know that the Wagner guys are inside Belarus. I do not think that they will strike into Ukraine. They could try. They will be slaughtered. But a push out of Belarus towards Kiev, for example, or Lutsk or Lviv, is a foolish endeavor, and they'll lose. But it does indicate how much Alexander Lukashenko, the head of Belarus, is basically Vladimir Putin's, puppet.
Mm-hmm. Right. Yeah, let's grab another one, Johnny Million, because we'll get into.
We've got from John G. Please ask Philip if Putin is still using children as human shields.
In essence, yes. 100%. He's using children as living shields in Crimea. We know that from an organization that I actually have contacts with, an organization called Save Ukraine, who works on retrieving children, that they have purposely put them at quote unquote summer camps in Crimea. So the children that they take from occupied territories, they send to Crimea, which is deeply cynical. Sadly, we know that the Belarusian, the branch of the International Red Cross in Belarus, is doing something very similar and openly admitted this week that they are taking children and bringing them to Belarus. Now, is that an effort to make more human shields? I don't know, because I can't really see Ukraine firing on Belarus, but that's certainly possible. Again, maybe with the Wagner presence as well, maybe they're going to do that. But they continue to take children from Ukraine and move them into Russia. Now, admittedly, many of them go to the far east of Russia, which is never going to actually come under threat. But the sheer fact that they are taking children and maybe not using them as human shields, but cynically using them as bargaining chips, these are children, man. These are children, and they're using them to exert influence and to do, prisoner exchanges and negotiations and all the rest of it, all with the threat of you ever want to see your kids again, you'll do X, Y, or Z. This is what the Russians do. It is unacceptable. It is a crime, and this is why Vladimir Putin has been indicted by the International Human Rights Court, and why he's not traveling to South Africa for the BRICS meeting, and rightfully so. So, this is criminal. It's despicable. It's criminal. It's cynical. The issue of Ukrainian children abducted and taken by Russians is not a small thing, not by any stretch. It is something that is going to be a dark black stain on their history for a very long time. And until every single child is returned, my argument is that sanctions remain and all the other punishments, because it's disgusting what they've done with the children.
There's also news that the former governor of the DPR, the Donetsk People's Republic, the little fake country that Russia made, has been detained because he was picketing on behalf of Gherkin's arrest. Like he was holding like a free Gherkin sign, which I think again, I'm not sure I can say that on the radio.
I had a beat off
in his sock drawer.
So I'm not sure if that's legally I'm allowed to talk about that. But the other thing too is that South Africa apparently is there's question as to whether in all their vociferous praise of Vladimir Putin and their support for him, recognizing that sort of like Turkey is recognizing that that's going to dry up after a while, and they're going to have to start making friends with the rest of the world again, and therefore they're leaning more, again, another one bites the dust in terms of the BRICS. It's going to be BRIC, but it's just going to be BRC, and I don't even know how strong Brazil is in this thing. But at some point, they're going to be Rick-rolled and only pronouncing it Rick still because
RC Cola. There'll be RC Cola.
It'll be the RC, the RC Plus, which sounds like a diet, like Coke Zero version of it. We have time for one more question, probably, because we're right at the bottom of the show.
Let's do it.
Yeah. So, Senior Space Ghosto asks, what is Phil's opinion on the CIA director's comment Prigozhin should not fire his food taster?
Yeah, I saw a lot of statements by the CIA director, also indicating that he that Putin thinks he can survive this. He can't. Look, again, let's be very careful about Prigozhin. There's a lot going on beneath the surface. There's a lot going on in the shadows. Again, I reiterate, Prigozhin is out of prison and drawing breath today because Putin wants him to. So I think the CIA director was kind of being a little bit glib about that. But there's going to be more of it. There's going to be a lot more of it. And a lot of it will be unseen, but there will be casualties. There will be collateral damage. People will die as the jockeying continues. Prigozhin's still in that mix, but there's much more coming. And Vladimir Putin's days are numbered.
Right. And on that note, I appreciate you joining us today, Philip Bittner. Thank you, Johnny Million, as well. Don't forget to check out twitch.tv/itsjohnnyMillion. WCPT Radio is WCPT820.com. And that way, if it's not in your car, you can have it on your radio anyways. And we'll see you guys next week. Take care of yourself and take care of somebody else. And thank you, Philip Bittner. Check out his vlogs. See you soon.
Bye, everybody.
Well, and love to Boston Bryant, by the way, who struggled. The struggle is real. Bless his heart. I'm gonna have a
the
backup.
The frustration on his face was amazing.
Poor kid. Yeah. We'll get there. We'll get him up and running. I've got a plan for him for his whole show, and we'll talk, Phil, about potential stuff. Also, I'm going to be in DC.
And we'll have a chat.
Okay, and I'm going to be in DC around my birthday because I'm doing a fundraiser for Carl Frisch because he's running for he's running for re-election, and that's since it's my birthday weekend. Our dear friend Brian Karam is gonna, I think, he's going to try and get me at White House press creds. We'll see if I'm able to actually get in there and ask a question. But, or at least stand in the back and make him think I'm from Real America's Voice, asking something really stupid. But I will be there at the same time, and we'll talk about coordinating something where I can have you on with somebody else that's directly there as well, talking about the issue overall, like a secondary podcast that we can just film separately. Yeah. I'd like to do that.
Sure,
so,
I'm all for it. I'm all for
it.
Let's talk before that.
Yeah, of course.
I'm talking soon, sometime this week.
Yeah.
Deal. Offline. And
you got it.
I've got some ideas that maybe I want to run past you that you may or may not be interested in.
I'm
all right, Johnny,
for
always a pleasure, buddy.
All right.
Yeah, right back at you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks so much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
See you on Wednesday.
Oh, Johnny. Bye. Oh, Johnny left me too. I'm all alone. I'm alone again without you. Alone again without you. Thank you guys so much. I can't tell you how much I appreciate you guys being on. Let me see. Does this work? Yeah, it does. Look at this. Here's our window. Did I make sure this isn't? Yep, that's right. Okay, good. It all works. And I hope you like the new setup. And I hope I'll be expanding on it as we go. Next, just so you know, we're gonna be visiting my dad, and I've got a funeral to go to. And I've got to fly back for a show, and it's just crazy week for me. But I'm going to be best I can putting up regular shows as we do. So I'll keep you guys posted. If there's any change in the schedule as best I can. But this is the new setup I built, and I'm working on it. I'm always trying to improve things, guys. I really am. So the new background is hypnotizing. I was watching Rachel, when she comes back on Mondays, and she's got her moving background by there, and it's so much more just engaging, Oh, my hair's very big today. Sorry. I apologize. Oh, and my shirt's it's so embarrassing. Anyways, I appreciate you guys. Thank you so much. Thanks for the likes and subscribes, and everybody who contributed today. The super chats were just lovely. Johnny keeps track of those because I'm busy trying to make sure we can hear everybody and all that kind of stuff. But I want you to know I appreciate it, and your generosity, it's stunning and beautiful and wonderful, and I appreciate it, and I want you to know that. And those of you that contribute via the Venmo and that kind of stuff when the show's not on the air, when I'm not live streaming, your watch later or whatever, I want you to know my watch goes off and lets me know when you've Venmo'd me or something, and it brings a huge smile to my face no matter the amount. It's just a lovely thing. It happens and I go, aw. And Summer will testify to that at some point. Anyways, I adore you guys. I will see you later. Take care of yourself, and I will see you guys Monday morning. And then let's see if the ending that I have. Let's see. Studio mode. Let's see this. See if this works. I hope so. Let's find out. Wish me luck. See you later.